There it is. Good morning. It is a fantastic, a tenacious Tuesday for the Nudelberg Daily Huddle. And that's right. As you can see, did everybody wear their Daily Huddle shirt today? Well done. Normally, Dad rocks it on a Monday, but we're wearing it on a Tuesday today. And that's right. Steve Nudelberg is not with us this morning. He is traveling back from Nashville today, but we're still excited to be here. It's still the Nudelberg Daily Huddle. So even though he's not here with us, actually, he's here with us in spirit. We know that he had a great event in Nashville. He spoke to the whole True Network, team, which was great. And we're excited to be here with you guys. Good morning, Greg Goldstein. Good morning, Debbie Hammer. Good morning, Lindsay. So this is really, really perfect timing because this is the way the world works, I think, right? Dad sent me a post of Lindsay's, a picture of Lindsay's post where she took a picture with somebody who was a Knoll. And he said, hey, that might be a great connection for you. So I do a little bit of digging. I researched the guy a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I want to meet this guy. So I reach out to Lindsay saying, hey, appreciate the engagement on my post. Would you mind introducing me to Robbie? Absolutely. She creates the email. Then her and I have a whole conversation about creating introductions for people and how to do it, whether you use video, all the different things. But today's content is going to be about being a connector. That's what we're going to spend a lot of the day talking about. So really great that story is so appropriate for what we're doing. But last night, right, we got to get fully in to fantasy football. And so for those of you who don't know, Jake and I've been in this league for close to a decade now, I guess, because it's a college group that I was in. But Jake has been my partner in this league for a long time now. And then Friday night, we had a new league that we've created where Shay is a member of it with us. So we are fully in. We've got 2 fantasy football teams drafted. And last night we got to use some new technology.
Yeah, usually we're trying to be on the phone, trying to figure out what picks have gone. And I said, why don't you just Zoom me? And you go, why? And I go, so we can screen share. So it was good to take advantage of the new tools, which we've always had.
It made it so much easier.
We've always had and just have never used. So it's fun, it's competitive.
And it was like being in the war room together. We were building the queue. We were like, all right, if this guy's gone, who are we going with next?
Strategy,
it 1,000% increased the experience.
Getting mad at people for taking your players. It was fun. And it was cool because Friday I got to hang out with where the other fantasy football league is with Andy Hill, obviously the CRO City Furniture. So I got to connect with his friends and do the draft with his friends, which was combining the worlds, which was really cool. So fantasy football brings everyone together.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff. And for those of you that are, keeping tabs, yes, Shay's team is hands down the best team in the other league that we're in, and he is the betting favorite to win the league.
Silent assassin. Didn't say anything throughout the draft. Maybe one word,
I love it. So let's get to some wake up music. Let's get everybody woke up, and then we will move on to the content for the day.
Wake up, everybody! Get up! Get up! Get up! Get up! Wake up! Come on! Come on! Wake up! Teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen what you have to say. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. No more about to thinking, top of thinking ahead. Come on now.
Good morning. Wake up. Let's go. And good morning to Dorcas, who obviously is like my wife, where she subscribes to you get a week-long celebration for your birthday. Like, it's your birthday eve. That means it's not your birthday, Dorcas. I love you, but we will give you your birthday music tomorrow when it is your birthday.
You're already talking about your birthday 2 weeks from now, though. So,
that's because you're going out of town for it. Right? Like, you'd think like a brother would make sure that he was in town for his brother's birthday weekend, but we keep talking about your trip that you're going on. Oh yeah, my birthday weekend, right? That weekend that you're going away.
So it's a good weekend. It's your fault.
So All right, the way we always do it on this show, we have got national days. We've got all the stuff that we talk about, right? It is National Matchmaker Day. And I think when most people hear matchmaker, they think of like putting together two people, right? Like you create couples, which there are some people who have an unbelievable skill in doing that, right? Like not me. I'm not really that guy. You know, I'm usually like, yeah, I don't really. Somebody's like, hey, you know, somebody you can set me up with. I'm like, yeah, not really.
Right. Yeah,
but
blind dates were never my thing. I don't.
But when it comes to business, I think that's something, number one, that our name carries weight in that, right? And shout out to the GOAT and the patriarch of this. I think being a connector in business, and especially in biz dev, because when we talk about delivering value to people early on in the relationship, one of the easiest ways to deliver value is to introduce them to people that are good for them, right? Good for their business, good for their network. They, you know, and we're going to go into all the different categories on how to do that. But I know for me, when I first got started at ESPN, new to the market, new to the business, right? So I didn't have a network to rely on. I had to build it, and I had to introduce myself to the market. And, you know, obviously from being trained by that, I knew the last thing I wanted to do was just go sell everybody something. So I quickly realized the easiest way to start creating value for myself in a new market was introducing people. Just so happened that the first couple of meetings I went on or visits that I went on, they were people that did not know each other, that having learned about them realized would be a good connection. So after I had met both of them, I reached out and said, hey guys, I've had coffee with both of you guys this week. You don't know each other, but you're both in Palm Beach, and I think you guys align perfectly with what you're trying to do. I would love for you guys to meet and have a conversation. Well, they took off and they went off and did a whole bunch of things together. And then it clicked for me immediately, like, oh, this was the way that I could really create value for myself very quickly. But there's a skill to it. I think we're going to be able to go into that. But have you seen any of that yet as you've been new to a market and as you're meeting new people?
So I think when you enter into the market, everyone's really eager to be like, oh, hey, wish you the best. And if there's anybody I can introduce you to, please let me do that. So I think it's a natural way for people to create value, vice versa. You know, I think people are eager to help you when you build that connection. But to me, it's all about building that initial connection first. If you don't have the initial connection with the person, there's no way that they'll pass you along or vice versa. So I think it's being willing to tell your story while also listening, you know, and relating to other people's story.
1,000%. So I think and so I agree with you, right? Like you can't come off as an asshole and then try to introduce somebody to the person that you met that thinks you're an asshole, because I'm like, I don't like that guy. Why would I like anybody that he hangs out with? So it's so important that as you're meeting new people, you do build that, you know, connection first. And the first step of that is actually just listening and asking questions. In order to introduce two people, they don't really need to know anything about you. You need to know everything about them. And so, you know, when we talk about our 15-minute virtual cups of coffee, and, you know, I talk to you about, well, what's the goal and what is execution in that 15 minutes looks like. To me, the ultimate achievement in that 15 minutes is to spend 14 minutes not saying anything about yourself and only asking questions and having the other person talk about themselves.
Which is hard, if I may say. Like you come
out
of
course.
Well, it's everything polar opposite of what they teach you in sales.
Sure.
I think.
The natural instinct is that, like, well, I want to get my message heard. Right. It's about me. And so Dad says it in the comments, like, think of them first. That's 100% the mentality behind it, is how do I think about them the whole time? So as and you know, Dad was great in saying, you know, well, just the initial question you can ask is, what's your story? Yeah. But then I think people then turn off because they say, what's your story? And the person starts telling their story. And now they're thinking about, okay, what else do I want to say? Yeah. How do I get my message in here somehow? And it's just such a relief to think, no. That's not the behavior. The behavior is to be listening intensely to what they're saying so that you can ask follow-up questions to what they're talking about. if they tell you that they, started early in their life growing up in North Dakota, for me, that's a ring a bell right away. Like, whoa, you grew up in North Dakota? Like, is that Fargo? Like, ask
the only place
question.
in North Dakota that you know, right?
Like anything. Like, well, did you go to North Dakota State then? Because that's really the only thing I know about them is that they are perennial powerhouses in 1AA football, Like, so that to me is, I'm so invested in what they're saying. I'm asking questions. I'm getting it to pull it out of them so that you can build that relationship. Because in order to be a great connector, you can't connect everybody, right? You can't be this guy that just introduces everybody to everything. You have to focus. You have to really know who the people are, what they're really about, what their value propositions are, what industries they're in, what makes them tick as people, what their hobbies are, so that when you introduce somebody, like, I think there's a couple boxes that it checks, right? Like, number one, the ultimate thing is, hey, you guys should just know each other because I think you're going to be friends. Like, check that box off. Like, okay, I'm introducing two people because I think you guys will benefit each other through friendship. The other one is then, can you help each other in business, right? Do what you guys do either directly align in a way that you can provide value to each other, or are you guys in the same industry and able to help each other because you're working towards the same goal, but you guys are kind of going at it in a different way? So, I think when you start figuring out, why am I going to introduce people, make friends, help each other in business, or be able to deliver value in their network? You know what? This guy is connected to a space that you're trying to get into or you want to be involved with. Here you go. Right. And so,
and
like,
right.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I've seen you and Dad be very good too at setting expectations for the introduction. Like, what the introduction, like, so everybody who comes to the table isn't kind of walking around with their head kind of spinning like, why am I doing this? You set the expectation both ways, and either by video or however, you create that bridge that makes people feel comfortable in that initial dialogue to then lead to whatever then comes after
so
that.
Lindsay and I had a whole conversation about how to introduce people, right, in this kind of setting. Because once, okay, let's say we've built the relationship, right? That person trusts me and I know about them, and I immediately know somebody that would be good for them to connect with. Well, now how do you facilitate that introduction? And, the number one way to communicate is with video. So, prior to video, it would be customary to create a introduction email that had a paragraph about this person and a paragraph about that person and why you were introducing, and, including their LinkedIn profile links
they do.
so they can go right to it, like this whole thing. Well, I am out of that game, right? That takes far too long for you to write an entire page just to introduce two people. So my style, and obviously I picked up some of this from Dad, is I could say, hey guys, super excited to create this introduction. Check out the video below and let me know if I can help facilitate time for you two to meet each other. Bam, simple, right? Both of you guys know me, right? I'm excited to introduce you to. I'm creating a video, so I'm urging you, I'm pushing both of you to watch the video. And then I'm setting the expectation that I'm willing to help facilitate the time. Let me know what I can do to help you guys connect. Then in the video, that's where I'm willing to say a little bit about each person, how I know them, what I know about them, why I think it's a good idea for the two of you guys to connect. And I'm happy to see what comes out of it. Very simple, very clear, but setting expectations. Yeah, what do you got?
And we talk about time being our most valuable asset, so you saying that you're willing to take time out to introduce them shows that you care, I think, from my point of view, that you care.
Correct.
And you see real value. They're like, oh, wow, this guy's actually going to take time out of his day to make a video to facilitate the connection. This must be worth it. So it's a great way.
And I love, you can see Lindsay's comment, so, Lindsay created the introductory email for us, and just the way we teach everybody to do it, I immediately followed up with the video. And of course, the first thing that Robbie said to me was, thanks, Mark. Love the video. What an excellent way to introduce yourself to somebody through email. bang, like, so
Right.
when we talk about what actually happens and the takeaway from that, that's what it's about, is how you show up. But in that setting, I could have shown up like everybody else. I could have responded with a text, hey, super excited, give me some times that work for you, and we'll grab, why not show up with who you are so that people can feel that? And now they feel an even bigger sense of urgency to meet you, because not only have you been introduced by somebody that they know, but now they got a chance to get a preview of who you are because you used video.
Yeah. Amen.
So I love it. All right, so let's continue on with the content for the day. Let's go to the motivational morning music, which will take us on to being a technician on a Tuesday.
This is how we do it. This is how we do it. La, 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 la. La, 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 la. This is how we do it. La, 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 la. This is how we do it. It's Friday night and I feel alright. The party's here on the west side, so I reach for my 40 and I turn it up. Designated driver, take the keys to my truck. Hit the shop cause I'm faded. Honey's in the streets, say money, yo, we made it. It feels so good in my hood tonight. The summertime skirts and the guys ain't canine. All the gangbangers forgot about the drive-by. You gotta get your groove on before you go get paid. So tip up your cup and throw your hands up and let me hit a party. Say, I'm kinda buzzed and it's all because this is how we do it. South Central does it like nobody does. This is how we do it. To all my neighbors, you got much flavor. This is how we do it. Let's flip the track, bring the old school back.
I love Don Stevens' comment. It's true, but that,
I mean, the majority of the music I picked for the show, I wasn't born for, so I take
correct. But you got a great knowledge,
which is actually really funny. My high school coach played this every Friday as our walkout song, and we couldn't get him to change it. Like, he was reliving the glory days. Like, we couldn't pick the song we wanted. But
Coach G, I love it. Great song, and the obviously the chorus of it. This is how we do it. We talked about, how do you become a connector, right? We talked about, number one, you got to build the relationship in those first meetings with people, in those first visits with people, and really learn about them in order to have the ability to introduce and connect. And you don't want to focus on everybody. You want to be very specific about how you do that. So I think the next part of that is, if we, and for those of you who have never taken our Modern Business Development course, or you don't know what our process is, it all starts with research, but then your first interaction with somebody, which is actually face-to-face, we teach should be a 15-minute virtual cup of coffee. And I talked about the goal of it being 14 minutes of them talking about themselves. And the ultimate goal is to build trust with that person, right? You want to learn about them. You want to learn as much as you can about them, but you got to be able to build trust with that person. So, there are some key elements to a 15-minute virtual cup of coffee that I think are, the foundation of how I set that trust in order to be able to move forward. And you want to take us through what some of those steps are? You want to talk about the first one?
Well, what's the goal? I mean,
the first thing you can do in a 15-minute virtual cup of coffee
is learn about the other person.
Sure. But then once you get into it, like setting the expectation, right, of what that call is about when you get started, right? Like when we talk about the steps, it's like, okay, great. I got somebody's attention and I converted it to a 15-minute virtual cup of coffee. Now what do? I'm in that seat. What do? Set the expectation up front. Number one, we talk about upfront contracts about time, right? Hey, I just want to be clear. We got 15 minutes set here. Do we have any room for a buffer? Do you have 5 minutes to go over? Do you have a hard stop? What's the expectation here on time? And I set the expectation right up front. Hey, look, I'm here to learn about you. Here's how I found you. We got introduced through Lindsay, or I found you through an article that you posted online, or you commented on this thing. Here's how we got connected. I want to learn more about you. And I immediately jump in with, what's the story, right? What's your story? so that I can get them talking first in order to be, what kind of listener do we need to be?
An active listener.
An active listener, right? Because what they're saying is going to give us the information that we need to follow up with questions, to keep them talking, and for us to continue to learn about them. And so the next thing that you can do while they're talking is, what's a great way to build trust while someone's talking?
Ask questions.
Ask questions for sure. But as they're actually talking, how about nodding?
Listening.
Like, I look engaged. Like, oh, virtual selling is so hard. Bullshit. It's even easier. All I got to do is sit in my house now. I don't have to be at a coffee shop. I don't have to drive there. I can be just as intensely focused. But the way I show that is by using nonverbals. My hand goes on my chin. Wow, that's really interesting. Or tell me more about that. My hands go up, right? My head is nodding. My head cocks to the side. All of these things are nonverbal actions that are showing that I am deeply involved with what they're talking about. The next thing, which I think we might not do a great job of on this show, is slowing your rate of speech down, right? And being very intent with the questions that you ask. Because if you're blasting a mile a minute in a 15-minute virtual cup of coffee, that person feels rushed too. You're not actually listening to me. You're just trying to blast through your questions and check the box that you had a conversation with me. That's not building trust. That's not building rapport. So let me slow down. Wow, you know what? That was a really interesting thing that you just said. Would you tell me how you came up with that theory? It's not difficult. It's very simple to just actually stay focused on that person and slow it down and spend time. And then I think at the end, everybody gets this question, right? Well, how can I help you? What can I do to help you? That's a daunting question for people. I feel like I don't know. I don't know that much about you. Why would you ask the person that you just had talking for 14 minutes how you could help them when they probably don't know that much about you? So instead of trying to see what I can do for you and putting that burden on them, why don't you rely on the information that you just heard and say, you know what? I heard that you're working on this, and I read this book. Like, you're working on building processes in your organization. I read this book. It was phenomenal about the simplification of information. Maybe you should take a read. Or I read an article, or I know this person, right? How can you offer assistance immediately that doesn't necessarily sell them something, but delivers value to them? So I think, there's a lot of different ways to accomplish, success in that 15 minutes to build trust. But I think if you focus on being intensely curious, active listening, and having nonverbals that acknowledge them and giving assistance as opposed to asking for assistance, I think it's a great way to start.
And everything you mentioned can be worked on. That's kind of my favorite part about it. And taking more cracks at the bat is, even if you don't think a conversation is going to lead to business or friendship, whatever, it puts you in a different element and gets your mind stimulated to think and put into the activities into practice, which will only make you better to continuously do. Or if he gives you a suggestion about a book, then you can add that to your repertoire. There's so many ways to gain value, vice versa. And
that is the fun. And I love to hear you say that, because that I know that at 23, you have the fundamental to developing business, right? Like, that to me is, if you're tracking your conversations, are you having conversations with interesting people? If you're not, there's no way you're going to be able to be a connector, and there's no way you're going to be able to deliver value. But if you are, you're going to have phenomenal conversations. You're going to learn about all different kinds of businesses. You're going to be able to connect people and offer value to people. And that is the fundamental to developing business before you ever sell anything, before you ever find opportunity for yourself, before you ever drive revenue. And I know, because that's how I built myself in the market. I didn't go out selling. I just started offering value to people, and I did it as fast as I could through 15-minute virtual cups of coffee, and then moved on to saying, oh, you know what? I found some opportunity for ESPN. but I already had value in the market because of what I had done prior.
And two of the things from the list that we have was one was ego suspension, and then the other one was get out of your comfort zone. And I think they kind of go hand in hand, because you don't want to get into conversations, or instinct would say, don't get into a conversation you don't know anything about. But it's really like the opposite.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite. Like, I don't know shit about this guy's business.
Shit about what I'm talking about. I have no idea what I'm talking about. What am I going to talk about with this guy? Rather flip it and say, well, I know nothing about this, so I have a lot to learn about it. So teach me. And Dad says that.
Yeah, well, and that Dad gets that from obviously, one of his favorite people. But, Warren Struhl would always go into the meeting saying, teach me how you do what you do. And that would lead to somebody going deep into how they've created their business, what they've done. That's another great way to get them talking in a way that offers you more information to follow up on. So great technical Tuesday. Well done, Jake, on putting together the on the content. Excellent music. It's Tuesday. Let's get after it. Let's get down to business.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like